Oh, hello there. Happy Doctor Who Day. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. Just to let you know, just in case you're confused, no, I'm not Tom Baker. It's me, Paul Mount. Happy 60th anniversary to Doctor Who, and happy 60th anniversary to all the fans, the proper fans, celebrating this very special day, 60 years since Doctor Who burst onto our TV screen. I don't know whether I'm going to be wearing this scarf all the way through this video. I'm certainly not wearing this hat because it doesn't fit properly because I have a large head. But I think I'll wear the scarf because it's quite fun and I don't get the chance to wear it very often. But I know it doesn't actually show you my Doctor Who t-shirt, my new Doctor Who t-shirt. I'm fully immersed in Who today because if you can't immerse yourself in Who on the 23rd of November, especially for the 60th anniversary, then when can you? That's what I'd like to know. Right, talking about Doctor Who, I've done a lot of that on this channel over the past few weeks with my Doctor Who Revisiteds, my rankings of the Doctors, just general Doctor Who stuff. Indulge me a little bit, those of you who aren't Doctor Who fans, who probably won't be watching this anyway. Like and subscribe, by the way, if you're watching this and you'd like to see more of this sort of stuff from somebody who's old enough to know better, wearing a long scarf. Yeah, like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, and yeah, step aboard my own TARDIS for the trip of a lifetime. Ooh. Anyway, right, this video is going to be a sort of personal account of Doctor Who and me, as the title says. Why I love this strange old show, why, despite everything he's put me through over the years, still love this show, and while I'm still looking forward to the upcoming 60th anniversary specials like Tiny Child might. Yeah, it's going to be fairly light-hearted. It's not going to be very, you know, people take Doctor Who very seriously. I take Doctor Who very seriously. I get annoyed when it does things I don't like. Davros! But at the end of the day, it's a TV programme that's provided an enormous amount of entertainment for an enormous amount of people over an enormous length of time. And I'm one of them. So I just wanted to record my own personal thoughts about the show and why it means so much to me as a piece of entertainment and as a part of my life, and it's a very big part of my life. So join me, won't you, as I just indulge myself for a few minutes. There'll be no illustrations in this. I'm not going to bother editing lots of pictures and things because that's not the point of this video. The point is for you to look at me, and just at me, for 15-20 minutes, probably not that long really, as I talk about my obsession? No, it's not an obsession. My fascination with Doctor Who. Right. Earliest memories of Doctor Who. That's a tough one because, as I think I've probably mentioned before, I remember very clearly going to see the first Doctor Who film starring Peter Cushing, 1965, in Torquay, in Devon, when I was on holiday. I was a wee year old, and my brother took me to see this film in the long-gone ABC cinema in Torquay Town Centre. Beautiful Art Deco building with pillars and things. It's a beautiful building. It's shocking that it was demolished years ago. So obviously I knew of Doctor Who. I was aware of Doctor Who, otherwise I wouldn't have gone to see this film. I obviously knew what the Daleks were, otherwise I wouldn't have gone to see this film. And I think I have the vaguest memories of things like the Web Planet, but I can't, pinpoint those memories specifically. But obviously I was aware of Doctor Who in the early 60s. That's, evident that I knew of it. My first proper memory, I suppose, and it's not so much a memory of Doctor Who, but a memory of it being on and me being there, would be November the 5th, 1966, which, of course, as long-time fans will know, was Patrick Troughton's first episode when he took over from the great William Hartnell. Power of the Daleks Part 1 was shown on November the 5th. I, at the time, as a child, was a massive firework person, as kids often were in those days, and probably still are today to an extent. And it was not uncommon for families to have their own firework parties in their gardens with boxes of fireworks that Dad would let off. We never had a bonfire, but we always had the fireworks, because I was a big, I like the bangs and flashes and sparkles and things. So I remember, for years, my father would get the fireworks and let them off in the garden, and we'd all ooh and ah, and then go in. But this particular bonfire night, I had measles or chickenpox. I was ill. So I couldn't go out in the garden to see the fireworks being let off. But I was indoors, sitting on my mother's knee, which was a bit weird because I was 28 at the time. No, I was sitting on my mother's knee, and my father was out in the garden letting off the fireworks, and I felt a bit wobbly, obviously, because I was ill. And I do remember the television being on, and although I don't remember anything about the episode or watching the episode, I know that it was Doctor Who that was on, because I was sort of looking at it and looking away. Oh, I've had my time over again. I would have recorded it on some sort of camera affair for posterity. But no, so I know I was what Doctor Who was on the television while I was watching the fireworks. And then as the 60s wore on, I became more interested. I do remember watching some later Patrick Troughton episodes. I sort of remember watching Fury from the Deep. I can remember sort of from his second and third season onwards, particularly his third season. I remember that fairly well. Invasion and the Mind Robber and the deadly tedious space pirates. It's one of those stories that no one is that bothered is actually missing. And I remember the War Games quite clearly. And then in 1970, then when it went to colour with John Pert, it became a thing. And I was a fan of this programme. I wasn't a fan because it wasn't at the time any particularly organised fandom. But I was a fan. I watched the programme every week. It was one of my favourite TV programmes. And I think I was lucky in that I was brought up in the 60s, when TV for kids, or TV was just very imaginative anyway. It was that sort of post-war period when television was stretching its legs, and especially in Britain, there was a massive explosion of culture and creativity with fashion and music and television. And we had fantastic TV shows like the ITC adventure shows, Randall and Hopkirk, The Champions, The Saint, The Prisoner, all the Jerry Anderson shows that I adored. This was real fuel for the fire of an imaginative child like me. And of course, Doctor Who was there. And as the 70s, we got into the 70s, that sort of stuff fell out of favour slightly, but Doctor Who was always there. It was always Doctor Who. As TV became grittier and darker in the 70s, Doctor Who was still there, flying the flag, flying the TARDIS. And I was there watching it and adoring it, as Tom Baker would say, and just finding out more about it. Of course, although I had those memories of the 60s, I didn't know a lot about its history. When the legendary 10th anniversary Radio Time special came out, it sort of opened up the world of Doctor Who, and I began to find out more about it. And there was that fantastic Piccolo book, The Making of Doctor Who, which came out in 72 with that striking cover of John Pert and the Sea Devil. And that opened up a lot more about the history of Doctor Who. So you suddenly became aware much more that there was this history of Doctor Who. And at the same time, Target books were finding their feet as well. They were republishing the original 3 Doctor Who books, which had come out in the 60s and hadn't been hugely successful for some reason. Now they republished them with glossy new jackets by Chris Achillios. And they were so successful that they started a new range of books with new novelisations of more recent stories. And I can still remember very clearly going into W.H. Smith's in the High Street in Cardiff, a shop which is sadly no longer there, not been there for decades, just looking in the children's book section. And there were these 2 Doctor Who books, new Doctor Who books with John Pert on the cover. And the stories I remembered, it was like, wow. And I remember buying those books, and inside it had a thing saying, in preparation, list of more books that were coming, and this was incredible. And although the book series focused on John Pertwee stories, eventually they started dipping back a bit, and you get a Patrick Troughton or a William Hartnell, and the history of Doctor Who became something I became immersed in, something I knew about. And then later on in the 70s, I became involved in organised Doctor Who fandom. I saw an advert in a long gone magazine, a sort of poster magazine, called TV Sci-Fi, which had a little advert for an address for the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. And this was about the time Robots of Death, which I did in one of my recent Doctor Who Revisited videos. There was something about that first episode that really caught my imagination. Even though I was a massive John Pertwee fan and I enjoyed all that spectacle and the monsters and stuff, I was now getting really engrossed in these slightly darker and deeper Tom Baker stories. And part 1 of Robots of Death really sort of fired me up. And that coincided with me becoming involved with the Doctor Who Appreciation Society as a member. And I'd write letters to the magazine. And I got involved in fandom. I met other fans. I got involved in fan writing. And that sort of fanned the fires again of my interest in writing and journalism. I'd always written lots of stuff when I was a kid, and short stories and comic strips and things. But this gave me a chance to write articles and reviews, and that sort of led me down the road that eventually got me writing for Starburst in 1985 for years and years. And of course, I'm back writing for Starburst now and have been for ages. And lots of other things that I've done. People I've met, places I've gone, stuff like that has all come from Doctor Who. So I owe Doctor Who a lot. Could have been a lot more, if I'm honest. because when Doctor Who went off the air in 1989, it was still part of my life, and I still bought the VHSs and bought the magazines and all bits and pieces. But a lot of more enterprising Doctor Who fans, possibly because they were more London-centric, they moved it forward in more creative ways by writing books and doing short films and spin-offs and licensed things based on the world of Doctor Who, and I didn't get involved in any of that. So I suppose, to an extent, and because of I was in Cardiff, which was another land, another world as far as a lot of people were concerned, even then, I got left behind a little bit, and I got a proper job and girlfriends and going out and drinking and doing the things that young people do. Doctor Who was still a massive part of my life, but it faded a little bit, and it was there in the background as this thing that died really in the late 1980s. So I sometimes regret the fact that I didn't do more with Doctor Who. And I've written short stories and I've written a book, but it's one of my constant regrets, I suppose, that I didn't let it take me into a more professional sort of area. I sort of was kept back from it a little bit. But that's slightly off the point, I suppose. But the show, even in those times that I haven't liked it particularly, I wasn't a massive fan of the late 80s when it was clearly running out of steam from about 84 onwards. I'm not going to go on about it, but those 6 years under Stephen Moffat were a trial. If ever I was going to stop watching Doctor Who, it was during that time. But I stuck with it. I kept the faith, because whenever you watch a Doctor Who episode, because you don't really know what's coming. These days, obviously, we know, we hear all the leaks and the bits and pieces that we find out. We know broadly what's coming. But because Doctor Who is different every week, every episode is different, or every serial is different, it's like starting a new TV series. Every episode, the new cast of characters, new location, new features, new problems for the Doctor to solve. And even during those downtimes, and I wasn't obsessed with the series because it wasn't doing what connected with me particularly, you still watch it because you think, well, next week's going to be good, or perhaps the next one will be better. So it has been like a roller coaster in a way, because it's fallen out of favour, it's come back into favour massively, and it was, I felt sort of vindicated. My faith in the show when it was off the air, even though it was from a distance compared to some people who were really pushing it, I felt vindicated that I kept my interest going in all those years. When it came back in 2005, it did what I always wanted it to do, and come back big, and people were passionate about it, and they loved it again. And I felt, I was right all along. I knew Doctor Who was good, and this is how good it can be. It's just run through my life, as I think David Tennant and Mark Gatiss have said, runs through my life like a stick of rock, like the lettering in a stick of rock. It's there. It's in my DNA. And I think, as Russell T Davies has said fairly recently, I think if Doctor Who gets its claws into you when you're about 8 or 9, you'll either grow out of it when you're about 15 or 16 and think, nah, it's too childish, or it's in there and it won't let go. And that's how it's been with me, and I really don't mind that at all, because and I think it's because I'm interested in that sort of entertainment anyway. I think maybe a lot of kids go through a phase of liking science fiction and then they lose that interest. But I think if you've got a mind that is receptive to fantasy stuff, and I love fantasy TV, I mean, I talk about it on this channel. If you're a reader of Starburst magazine, you'll know I talk about it there. Look at my collection of stuff. It's all sort of based on that, because I think it's a drab world, it's a grey world, it's a horrible world, it's a dangerous world, it's a violent world. It's not a very nice world. And it is nice to have things that really take you out of it. And nothing does that better than Doctor Who. I've watched lots of shows over the years. I'm still a massive fan of the Anderson shows. More recently, things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The X-Files, Stranger Things, all these shows that they have their moments in the sun when they're like the big thing. But they fade away again. And I love them all, and I've embraced them all. Buffy the Vampire Slayer I still think is a masterpiece. But Doctor Who sort of just carries on, rides its way through them all, and outlives them all. And it will outlive me, which is pretty much a bizarre sort of thought. I remember years ago when I was doing an early Doctor Who research thing, used to go up to London, and this was back in the early 80s, I think. And we used to watch old Doctor Who episodes that were unavailable, but we had access to them. And we were writing very early research stuff into the history of Doctor Who. And I remember that one of the people involved in that would say, one of my fears is that I won't live to see the last episode of Doctor Who. And when it finished in 1989, he probably ticked that box and thought, well, I've seen the last episode. But of course, that's all changed. I dare say now he's resigned to the fact he's not going to see it, as I am. And it's it's a shame to think I won't see Doctor Who carry on, for 40 odd years or something. But it's also quite refreshing to think that something that's connected with my youth still around in 100 years' time. It will be. It may not be on television. It may be beamed directly into people's brains. It may be holograms. I don't know. But there's always going to be Doctor Who in some form or another, because it's now established itself as not only part of British culture, but I think part of the world's culture. And I think we'll see that. I hope we'll see that when the Disney streaming thing starts up. Doctor Who will either fly or it will not fly because it's too British. And that's, it's not my concern, because I don't really care, as long as it's still there and I can watch it. It would be nice to see it really fly and become a big franchise. But the risk there, of course, is, as I've said, these things are in favour for a while and they fade away again. So, Doctor Who can either become the biggest thing in the world, or it will try and fail and just become a British thing. Because it is British. It is a very British sensibility to it. So yeah, in summation, Doctor Who to me is all about nostalgia. It's about that, and that's something which again I've mentioned on this channel before, how a lot of things I'm buying on eBay and picking up are very nostalgia related, because I think as you get older, especially in an uncertain world, it's an emotional crutch, perhaps, or an emotional tie to your past, to happier days, when you were a kid, when you were carefree, when you didn't have to worry about work and mortgages. I don't have to worry about those things now, but you go through life with things that you're concerned about, or things that bother you, relationships that don't work, relationships that, for whatever, all these human things. Doctor Who is a link back to times when you didn't worry about that, you didn't care about that, and watching it now, it's like that again. It takes you away, to take an episode title, it takes you away from the bitter realities of a cruel world, and just gives you a good time, an imaginative time, an exciting time, frustrating time, but ultimately a life-affirming time. And I think I wouldn't be the person I am, for good or bad, if it wasn't for Doctor Who, because that's how much it's meant to be over the years. I love it. Basically, I love Doctor Who, for all its faults, and I know we're entering a new era of Doctor Who, which is by necessity going to be quite different. It's going to be much more modern. It's going to be much more conscious of the world around it. And it's been like that for a few years. But I think we're going to go down that route now. Doctor Who is going to modernise itself. But it will still be Doctor Who. It'll still have that magic ingredient that makes it Doctor Who, whatever that ingredient is. So yeah, Doctor Who is me, I suppose, in a way. Not just scarf. Doctor Who's made me what I am, as I say, for better or for worse. And so that's my random unscripted thoughts about Doctor Who. I just came in here and thought I'd talk. When I do these videos, any of these videos, I don't make notes. I don't plan what I'm going to say. In my head, I've a few ideas of the opinions I want to get across, but I don't make notes unless it's sort of cast and things that I can't remember for films. But especially with Doctor Who, because it is such a big thing, I just wanted to talk openly and honestly, not too sentimentally, because that's, it's not, Doctor Who isn't necessarily about that, despite the emotional core of it these days particularly. But it's just been a constant in my life, and can't imagine life without it now, even now, as I reach an advanced age. Still got my own teeth, still walk in a straight line most of the time. And yet I still have this bond with this mad show. And remember, this mad show was created in 1963. As I said, part of that explosion of culture post-war in Britain. But this show wouldn't be made now. If you went to a TV commissioner now, said, I got an idea about this eccentric alien who travels in a police box that flies through time and space, and he meets monsters and fights them and has companions, they would call for the Men in the White Coats, probably. But it's not the sort of TV that gets made these days in this country. We do the odd bit of fantasy, science fiction stuff, but you know what British TV is like these days. You know what its obsessions are. That drive for creativity and originality isn't there anymore. It's mainly for ITV, but advertisers and BBC are just hanging on to their charter, I think. So that Doctor Who is of its time, and yet it's of all time. It's sort of straddled the decades and straddled generations as this incredible, iconic creation from a different era. And the magic is that it's still here, and it has this ability to reinvent itself and reinvigorate itself. And it, as I said, it goes through these dips and it comes back. And then it falls away and it comes back, and that's what it will continue to do. So yeah, Doctor Who is a bigger part of my life as breathing and eating, in a way, and I'm not ashamed to say that. So that's my thoughts on Doctor Who. From the hearts. Hope you've enjoyed this video. It hasn't been quite as rambling on. 20 minutes is probably enough. Thank you for watching. Hope you've indulged me a little bit in talking about Doctor Who. Why not let me know what Doctor Who means to you? Let's not have any of this. Christian will ruin Doctor Who. It's Doctor Who, not Nurse Who. Let's not have any of that nonsense. Let's just have some nice, positive, upbeat comments. Just forget all the scandals and the trauma that comes with being a Doctor Who fan. The outrage, the entitledness that some fans have. Let's just glory in this show that means so much to so many of us. And let's set aside all the arguments and the, I ranted on about Davros last week in what's been, incidentally, my most successful video. It doesn't mean I'm going to keep on doing videos like that. It's just something I felt was a misstep. But I'm not going to carry it with me. It's not going to make me not watch the show. And I have seen people online go, right, that's it, I'm done. I'm not watching it. Well, it's your loss, go away. But I think today of all day, it's just about celebrating Doctor Who, celebrating the community of Doctor Who, whether it's the cast, the crew, the fans, for all their faults. Today, let's just say, I love Doctor Who. Right, thank you for watching. There will be a lot more Doctor Who content coming in the next few days. Obviously, we've got the colorized version of the Daleks, which is screening tonight. I'll be doing a video on that tomorrow. I have just received, yesterday, my Blu-ray of the animated Underwater Menace. I will be reviewing that too. Of course, we've got the specials coming up in the next few weeks. So there's a lot of Doctor Who stuff, but there's a lot of non-Doctor Who stuff as well. So don't despair if you don't like Doctor Who. Right, thank you for indulging me with this. Hope it's been of interest and evoked some memories for you. And if it has, let me know what those memories are. Let me know what you think about Doctor Who and why you love it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the Doctor Who stuff.